So, part 3, female Diksha Gurus. Srila Prabhupada's letters. I believe it was a couple of years ago when this issue was at the forefront of at least ISKCON's news of the day. One another senior Prabhupada disciple guru shared his realizations and opinions on the female Diksha Guru issue. It was a profound, and I really enjoyed listening to and hearing the arguments he was putting forth, reasons as to why we should not have female Diksha Gurus in ISKCON. I thought he, of all the arguments I've heard as to reasons why we should not have female Diksha Gurus, his were the most, I would say, well researched, I would say well thought out, in the sense that, this devotee, this Vaishnava, this wonderful devotee, he's known for writing incredibly detailed and researched books, so it was no surprise that his take on the female Diksha Guru issue was well thought out, was well researched, and was presented quite thoroughly and in many ways logically from his point of view, obviously. And one of the issues he brought up was Srila Prabhupada's letters. And I've heard several, he wasn't the first one to bring up Srila Prabhupada's letters as a reason why we should not have female Diksha Gurus. But his statements regarding Srila Prabhupada's letters was quite well put together. However, I still, on that particular issue, disagree. There was two issues on which I agreed with him as to why, but I'll get to that reason later. He had one very interesting and important reason with which I agreed with him as to why having female Diksha Gurus could be a bad idea. Not that I agreed that it would be a bad idea, but I understood where he was coming from and I agreed with his reasoning. The reasoning was not enough to then not have female Diksha Gurus, but I understood the reasoning. But on the point of Srila Prabhupada's letters, his opinions and the opinions of others who brought this up, for me, it still holds no water. It goes like this. Srila Prabhupada's letters are contextually relevant to a particular individual and cannot be taken as instructions for policy issues, policy statements, kind of like a certain president tweeting foreign policy using Twitter, right? Establishing foreign policy using Twitter. Something that effect goes the argument. And that Srila Prabhupada's letters are largely irrelevant and superfluous. Those are the words used. Irrelevant, superfluous. In terms of, not superfluous in terms of their import to a particular individual, but irrelevant and superfluous in terms of ISKCON organizational policy. Those are the words used. I disagree. Oftentimes the letters reference is because there was a letter, Srila Prabhupada wrote a number of letters stating that, of course, there can be female Diksha Gurus. The fact that a person was a female did not preclude their ability to serve as a guru, as long as they knew the science of Krishna, right? Jai Krishna Tattva Vitashe Guru Hoy. As long as they knew Krishna Tattva, they're qualified to be gurus. Gender, bodily, had nothing to do with it. Varna had nothing to do with it. Ashram had nothing to do with it. As we talked about yesterday, Varnashram is not a qualifier or a disqualifier in terms of guruship. So the argument of Varnashram is moot in that sense. But anyways, so a number of letters Srila Prabhupada wrote saying, yes, women should be gurus. And we should have women gurus in ISKCON, not just a theoretical idea. Yeah, women can be gurus, as if, pigs might fly. No, women will be gurus, and they will be gurus in ISKCON. Those are the instructions in those letters. So, if we look at the letters where Srila Prabhupada made those statements, two of them, one was to, I believe, to a Mataji who was curious about that. And the reply was, yes, women can be gurus. Two other letters, because I know of three. There may be more, but I know of three. One to a lady who was, one of the rank and file devotees of ISKCON, who was curious, and Prabhupada said, yes, of course, women can be gurus. And the two other letters, one was to, I believe, a college professor in Canada, a Canadian college professor, where Srila Prabhupada said, yes, women can be gurus and women will be gurus in the future of ISKCON. And remember, when Srila Prabhupada talked about the future of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada talked in years, not decades or centuries, right? When Srila Prabhupada said, my students will take up disciples, he actually gave a date and said 3 or 4 years when they're, Bhakti Vedantas and so on and so forth. Srila Prabhupada was not waiting for the next century, for the turn of the century, for his devotees to be qualified. As we see, he gave sannyas very, very early. He stopped giving sannyas because it wasn't working out too well, but that's beside the point. Srila Prabhupada's intent was always to get things going immediately. He put very much faith in the sincerity of the devotees of the time. Not misplaced, he put faith and he empowered them. And many of them rose to the occasion. Some did not, but many did. So Srila Prabhupada wrote to this one college professor, a Canadian college professor, saying, yes, women can be gurus. Srila Prabhupada then wrote to, or not then, but another letter Srila Prabhupada wrote was to Bali Mardan. Bali Mardan was not a GBC devotee at the time, but he was a senior leader in ISKCON. Very key in the organizational structure of ISKCON at the time. Just short of being a GBC person, he was quite prominent. Certainly a thought leader within ISKCON at the time. He had Srila Prabhupada's, I won't say he had Srila Prabhupada's ear, that's the wrong term. Srila Prabhupada was in his ear. He had access to Srila Prabhupada. He had access to all of the leaders of the time. So these letters to these two people are not flippant letters to a bhakta who has some curious, who's writing some letter to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is just trying to inspire a bhakta or a bhaktin. None of these letters are to those type of people. The lady was not a senior leader at the time, but she was an initiated devotee who had a serious question about this, and Srila Prabhupada wrote back in the affirmative. Srila Prabhupada wrote to the college professor in the affirmative, another thought leader. Srila Prabhupada wrote to Bali Mardan, another leader in ISKCON, in the affirmative. There is no letter where Srila Prabhupada says it's not possible. There is no letter. Not that I know of. If someone pulls someone out, so be it. But there is no letter stating the opposite. Srila Prabhupada's letters, yes, they are contextual. They are related to the person to whom Srila Prabhupada is writing. But Srila Prabhupada's letters, they're not superfluous or irrelevant. Quite the contrary. What we see in Srila Prabhupada's letters, and this is how we should take Srila Prabhupada's letters. When I was serving in the Boston Temple as president, we would, for the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class, we would spend 10 minutes reading Srila Prabhupada's letters. I was instructed not to do that because Srila Prabhupada's letters are contextual. And I get it. It was something out of the ordinary to do for a Bhagavatam class. So be it. However, my view and realization of Srila Prabhupada's letters was that Srila Prabhupada's letters, contextual, yes, but they never contradicted policy. They never contradicted principle. They dealt with application of principle to a particular person, for sure. But the principle was always established. Srila Prabhupada never overturned a principle. He only explained how the principle should be applied in a particular time and place. I think Srila Prabhupada's letters are extraordinarily valuable because it shows how Srila Prabhupada applied policy, applied principle to every individual situation, how he had a gentle, compassionate, and deft touch when applying principle that was not overturned, that Srila Prabhupada did not negate. The principle, Srila Prabhupada always upheld the principle. The letters gave us a clue into seeing how Srila Prabhupada applied the principle. And that's where the letters are incredibly relevant. Srila Prabhupada's letters should be, as far as ISKCON leadership is concerned, Srila Prabhupada's letters should be course material in terms of leadership courses in ISKCON. How to apply principles that are inviolate. How to apply principles with compassion, with a deft, considerate, and sensitive touch, contextually, individually, that applies to a unique individual. But the principle always held. So Srila Prabhupada's letters are not superfluous. They're not irrelevant. And they never, Srila Prabhupada never compromised on principles. He only showed how an individual can apply those principles to that individual's life. And that deserves being studied ISKCON-wide. There are so many lessons to be learned as leaders by reading Srila Prabhupada's letters. Seeing the principle, which was never undermined, never negated, never compromised, how they are applied to individual devotees so that the individual devotees can continue to progress, can continue to grow. They do not lose their enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness. I strongly urge all ISKCON devotees, spend as much time as you do reading Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, as much time as you spend reading those books, which should be every day, spend reading one or two of Prabhupada's letters every day. You will get an insight into Srila Prabhupada's, how Srila Prabhupada enacted, how Srila Prabhupada implemented, how Srila Prabhupada executed the principles he talks about in his books. So I will reiterate, there are no letters where Srila Prabhupada said anything to the contrary. None of Srila Prabhupada's letters. All of his letters where he writes about the female Diksha Guru issue, Varnashram, Varna is not a disqualifier, Ashram is not a disqualifier, one's gender is not a disqualifier. Never, ever. The only qualifier is, does the person have Krishna Tattva? Tattvavit, know the science of Krishna. That was always the instruction. And the letters that Srila Prabhupada wrote regarding female Diksha Guru, he wrote to thought leaders, both at ISKCON and society at large. He did not write letters to placate a new bhaktin on a college campus. Srila Prabhupada placated no one. Let's chant our morning japa, and we'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll go over Srila Prabhupada's books. But for now, let's chant some japa. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, 7:30, for some more Japa, and then we'll also go over Srila Prabhupada's instructions in his books. We went over letters today. Tomorrow we'll go over Srila Prabhupada's instructions in his books regarding the female Diksha Guru question. Hare Hare.